Edgar?
Got a new part.
I got you.
Ready for the season.
I was just wondering if you got two credentials, one for you and one for your partner.
I'll sneak them.
All right.
They gave his partner's credentials.
Is that what it was? All right. You guys ready to go?
Today white shirt day?
Today is, yeah, you know, I don't, interesting. It's one of those things when it's early and you try not to wake anybody up. You just kind of grab whatever's kind of first there in the closet. Are you good? Good. Well, guys, it's time. It's exciting. We're here in game prep now, and looking forward to the trip to Dallas. Obviously, our thoughts with that hurricane that has hit down in that southern region down there is something that we're aware of and feel for those people, and it's always interesting is the excitement that there is for the games, and yet it's real life happening down there, especially in that Houston area, and so we're obviously conscious of that and feel for those people and what they're going through. Looking at our opponent, a team that when you look and study where they've gone and what they've done and who they've studied off of, I think any first game you always try to look into some of that, maybe how they're going to, tweak who they are maybe from the year before. Take a look at the different places they've gone and visited with. And in doing that yet, you kind of got to go on what is their history. In the first game, you're always going to see some things that you haven't seen. There's new wrinkles every year on both sides. So the importance of really our young guys being focused and do what they've been trained to do. I think the unknown piece of that first game, it really comes down to you more than it does the opponent and how you go about it. And the things that kind of show up, yeah, they've got a bunch of new guys, but a bunch of those guys have been on film a year ago, and you're able to watch and see how they play, and yet it'll be interesting. I mean, obviously the additions of the guys that they have, just like the additions of the guys that we have. So should be a lot of fun. Things that stand out, obviously, defensively. Really the way they forced their opponents to lose on first and second down. I think 3rd and 7 to 10 and 3rd and 11 plus reels, there were a lot of plays on them, which tells us that they do a great job getting you into uncomfortable situations and behind the sticks, and that's something we're going to have to be conscious of is trying to stay ahead of the sticks in what we're going to do. They do an outstanding job on offense, shifting, motioning, creating edges, doing some things that way. I think their quarterback play, he does a really good job, and they've done a good job limiting what he does and yet being accurate with his throws and not giving the ball up. Obviously, their offensive coordinator, Tim Drevno, is a good friend. We worked together back at Montana State. He's been with him some different stops along the way, and he does an outstanding job with that. Our special teams, we got to take advantage of our specialists, and not only the guys that are doing the kicking, but we've got to create some field position in the return game when given the opportunity, to field some punts and field some kickoffs. So, but with that, it should be a lot of fun. And I know our guys are looking forward to it. We'll head out on Friday, stop by the stadium, and let them look at that giant television screen they've got in the middle of it, and go play the game on Saturday. And that should be what it's at. We've the quarterback situation, we have a plan. It's in place. No, Edgar, I'm not going to tell you what it is, so there's no reason to ask. But we're excited about that, and Yeah, we'll leave that for them to guess as well. So, injury-wise, C.J. McWilliams is still out. Kamori Gamble, we're getting that foot re-looked at here tomorrow, but he's highly questionable. Other than that, we should be in pretty good shape. Quincy Linton came back, practice the end of last week. I thought moved pretty well. Kylan, I guess, is the one that's still a little iffy, and he's a guy we need to have. But he went through practice on Friday. Some of the individual stuff and some of the walkthrough stuff, we're looking to see how that goes today. And but we're expecting him to be able to play. So other than that, added a couple new guys to the roster you're going to see, and defensive lineman transferred in from North Carolina, and Marlon and Gene, an offensive lineman from Texas, that'll obviously be helping us through this year as they sit out and get ready for next season. So those two guys are additions to your rosters as far as on our current team, and we welcome them and excited to have those guys as well. So, questions?
Mark? Can there be an element of surprise with the quarterback situation, not knowing, them not knowing, you not knowing?
Well, whether it is or not, they're going to prepare, obviously, for the read option stuff and quarterback run stuff, as well as being able to contain a guy in the pocket. At the same time, they got to prepare for locking it up and letting those other guys, throw her downfield. I think the big key to us is going to be how we handle what they do up front. As you know, I like our offensive line. I like where we're at. But to me, that's going to be the telltale of everything that we do.
Piggybacking on that, do you go back to the tape from 2 years ago and show those guys that this week for a motivational standpoint?
No, not really. That was 2 full years ago, 2 different teams. I'm not sure we still have it in the system. I think I threw up all over it. So.
Gene up front.
Jim, is there any chance that what we see on Saturday from your quarterbacks, is this going to be a constantly potentially changing plan moving forward?
Yeah.
What we see Saturday may not be what we see the following Saturday.
Yeah, I think you're absolutely correct there. And, I think it'll evolve as we go. And I know it's one of those deals that obviously is as important as anything because of that position. But, I'm really kind of more concerned about where we're at up front and how much better we've become there. That'll enable us to open some things up.
Thomas.
Thursday it came out, I guess 2 of your freshmen, one of them was already suspended, but James Robinson's status, given the marijuana citation, is he good to play in this game?
No. That's pretty obvious.
And then
I just love the way you kind of questioned that with such a serious face. Of course not. He's
and
not
then
playing.
on the other 7 guys, have there been any status changes? Are they back in practice, or is there
No,
any
it's
timeline
still
for that?
kind of running its course. That hard-hitting journalism. I love that.
Can I just follow up on that? Robinson did he already come in with a kind of a strike against him? I mean, you kind of went to bat for this kid, and how disappointing is him coming in and getting in trouble almost right away?
Yeah, well, it's always disappointing, and yet, you know what? That's part of growing up. That's part of making choices and understanding, based on those choices, really determines, what's going to happen with you. And yet, like I said, I'm not giving up on him. So.
Pat in the back.
I can hear you, Pat.
I'm sure you can.
Yeah.
Thank you. Playing a game like this, opening game, this is something that Florida fans aren't used to, and even this team's not used to. But is there a fine line between getting too amped up to play in that arena and just treating it as you want to treat it as another game, but you kind of can't?
No, I think what you I think what you kind of try to do is let the game itself and the atmosphere handle that. I don't, I think the ramping up piece, opening day is something that's exciting for anybody. It doesn't matter who the opponent is. In the opening day jitters or all that kind of stuff. In this case, I think our players, they come to the University of Florida to play in games like this, and that's something I'm excited about, and I'm excited for them to enjoy it as well. I think the big thing is let's go embrace the opportunity and have a good time while we're doing it on a pretty nice stage.
Right there, left coach.
Jim, going back to Alabama, even at Colorado State, you've often had a plan in place at quarterback, whether it was Garrett Grayson or any of the guys at Alabama.
Mm-hmm.
How much has this process kind of just taught you, and how unique has it been for you going through it with the guys?
Well, in this particular case, I think every year is different. I mean, it's its own set of challenges, and I think in this case, kind of the uniqueness of each guy's ability as you're moving forward. But with that, I think that's been kind of fun, and it's allowed us to, do some things that maybe we haven't been in the past, and yet the big key, as I said, is more than anything is how physical are we going to be on both sides of the ball against this opponent. That's really what it's all about.
And Tyler Jordan's ability to, kind of play A through Z on the offensive line, what value does that bring?
Well, it's invaluable, and he's had a really good camp. He's played basically all 5 spots, and he's a guy that we're going to count on, and we're going to count on him in our heavy package as well. Some of the things that we have personnel and formationally, he's been a guy that's really picked it up and done a great job for us.
Is it rare to have somebody who can kind of do all 5 spots?
Well, I don't know how rare it is. It's something that you kind of, you try to figure out your 8, 9, 10 best guys. And I think the key there is making sure no matter what, you have the flexibility to get your best 5 on the field.
Edgar.
Even having a plan in place at quarterback, do you feel like it's going to be kind of an end-of-the-week decision, game day even, who takes the first snap and how you go about that?
We got a plan.
You're not going to tell us anything, are you?
Edgar.
So
I threw the disclaimer out right away.
I gotcha. But so is part of it because Michigan is not kind of
look? The opponent has nothing to do with it.
Okay.
So, and ultimately the opponent has nothing to do with what we do. We just got to go play.
You once one more Michigan question said you kind of admire Jim Harbaugh the way he does things outside the box. I mean, the satellite camp approach, etc. Can it get to a point though where you're putting pressure on your program when you're just doing all these kind of high profile things like he's been doing? I don't know. Each guy's his own. He obviously felt that they needed to do some things to become relevant, and that was his choice in doing it. Just probably not something I'd do, so that's all right.
Savannah in the back to the right.
Coach, you spoke about the importance of special teams, and with Callaway out for this first game, do you have an idea of who's going to be taking over his role on punt return? Yeah, we've got obviously having Brandon Powell, who's done it, and Dre Massey, who was actually our guy a year ago before he got hurt in the opening play of the game. But those 2 guys will handle some of that. And then obviously in the kickoff return game, Tyree Cleveland has done a really good job, and then we've got a rookie back there that can run pretty fast that we'll let him have a shot if needed to.
Gene up front.
Don't forget your question, Gene. Okay.
Good observation by you.
Yeah.
When you said a few weeks ago at Media Day that this team's going to be pretty good, how much of that was even knowing back then that you might have had some idea what you were going to do at quarterback, that you really weren't as worried about the position just because there was no clarity at that time?
No, I like our team, man. I like what they've done, this off season. I like what they've done, this camp. The guys that are here, have come together and we'll see. I think going back to one of the questions about really the opening game and how we haven't had many like this in our history here. I think the big thing is knowing it is a huge game, and yet it's a huge game because it's the next game on the schedule, and that's something that we can't get all caught up in. We just got to go play.
As a follow-up to that,
Mm-hmm.
how big of a game do you think it is for you personally, as the coach being in their third year?
I think every game's a huge game for me personally, and yet here's the good thing, Gene. I'm not suiting up and playing. I like the players we have that are suiting up and playing, but it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter what the challenge is. It doesn't matter what the competition is. It doesn't matter what the game is. I think anytime you do anything, whether it's coaching a game of football or shooting hoops or doing whatever you do, it's the joy of competition, and I kind of like that.
Ryan, over the right.
So this plan, is it different maybe than what you anticipated at the start of the camp?
Edgar, can you answer that?
I like that.
Yeah.
That was a very
Go ahead.
That was very nuanced. That was different.
I'm just gonna let Edgar handle that one. Go ahead.
Well, I did enjoy that.
Yeah, I did. There you go. I tell you what we're gonna do. We're gonna snap it. That's the first play.
Okay, moving on then.
Swinging gate. How's that?
David Rees was once committed to Michigan. What do you recall about the process after he decommitted and how you guys got in there and got him down here?
Well, I think that was one of those deals where obviously we knew him as a really good football player, and he played well for us last year. Him being from the state of Michigan, obviously I'm sure that this carries, his dad being an ex-Michigan State Spartan, those are some kind of interesting ties. But, in this case, we were able to get him in at mid-year, which was huge. And I think that really helped him in his preparation to being a starter a year ago.
And one more, since the first one was not answered. I'll get a third here.
Ask Edgar.
If one of those guys unfortunately gets hurt, what is the depth situation at linebacker? What are your options there beyond Christian, I guess? Yeah, and obviously, we haven't talked much about Jeremiah Moon and his impact as well. Kylan obviously coming back, and jumping on in there. Said Brunson had a really good camp, so he'll be ready to go as well.
Go ahead, Mark.
You touched on the line play, but is there anything that you're concerned about going into this game?
Oh, as a coach, what doesn't concern you, right, is you're doing your checklists, and but ultimately, your preparation, your guys, here's what I think happens to you a little bit in first games sometimes is, the excitement, as we talked about. I think for us it'll be kind of one of those deals where, they're going to make plays on both sides of the ball. It's how you respond after those plays are made is really going to be big.
And you're relying on some young guys. How do you gauge whether they're ready for this stage?
Yeah, that's interesting. I think the big thing is you're talking about guys that chose to come here to be on that stage. The moment is not going to be too big for them, and yet they might make a mistake or two, but it won't be for lack of effort. I know that, and those are the things that you coach through and learn through, and I'm excited to see those guys play.
Gene and then Phil.
I think I'm avoiding the disclaimer here, but how do you feel that your
It's okay.
quarterbacks will handle the uncertainty of not knowing who's in there until whenever it is you choose to
I
use
think
them?
they'll handle it great.
Phil.
guesses. We just need 3.
So I'm going to let you know a hint. We're going to open up in Wildcat with Kadarius Toney there. How's that? All right. So there you go. All right. There's your starter.
Going back to the line play, right here. What kind of camp did Ceecee Jefferson have, and what kind of year do you expect from him?
Well, Ceecee's a guy that obviously has played a lot of ball here and done a lot of really good things. You know, his leadership, his energy, his ability to both, depending on our fronts and, you know, what we do as far as the different looks, be it in and out of odd fronts, you know, to even fronts, to, you know, sink fronts. He's a guy that can play both on the edge and inside in some packages. And I think really more than anything is his ability to kind of, you know, be on the edge, you know, and make some plays behind the line of scrimmage. It's going to be big for us to create some negative plays. And he's a guy that's got to be a part of that.
When you're facing a team that's had some turnover along the offensive line, is that a conversation you have with a guy like him, identifying, hey, this is where we really need you to win?
Well, I think the big thing is you go back and, you know, you watch what you do have of the personnel, you write it up, you know, build your opponent tapes, and but more so you have to rely on your training. That's really the key.
Zach, over here to the right, coach.
Jim, with the returning players that you have, those guys have been in some big games, big stadiums. Do you think that one or two of those games will be similar to what they may see Saturday, or do you think it could be new territories in terms of magnitude, pressure, atmosphere?
No, that's a good question. I you know, I don't know. I mean, it's a first game. You know, it's not, you know, obviously a championship game. It's not for the title. It's not whatever. But at the same time, I think more than anything is it's an opportunity to kind of show who you are as an individual player against a really good opponent on national television.
And then you mentioned your 2 new roster additions. You guys have now brought in several transfers from fifth-year seniors to true freshmen. It's not like high school recruiting. Can you just talk about that process and what you and your staff look for during those evaluations?
Well, I think first thing, you know, you've heard me talk about it before, is making sure we stay in roster balance, and those are positions of need. You know, they searched us out when, you know, and then obviously you see if you have a spot and see if it fits. And in this case, these 2 guys fit, and we're excited that they're here.
Question in the back, and then we'll get you Pat after this.
Coach, sometimes in other sports, basketball comes to mind when a team goes and plays in a unique venue or a larger venue. You do certain things to prepare for that venue, what unique factors of that. Just curious, have you guys done anything, or have you at least talked to some of the guys about playing in a venue unique like Jerry's World there?
Yeah, I don't know that we can, you know, unless we go to Pat's house and look at his TV that he's got, you know, we can duplicate the size of the screen in the middle of the field. And yet, you know, I look at it kind of a little bit like this. I mean, we're really fortunate. You know, we get to go play in an NFL stadium every year against Georgia. Obviously, we've been to Atlanta and played in NFL stadiums. I think it's something our guys look forward to. And, you know, this is I'm looking forward to seeing it. You know, I mean, what the heck? And I think for us, the preparation piece, you know, it kind of goes back to it. I mean, the last time you checked, the dimensions on the field are the same as we've got out here on our practice field. So,
Pat, over to the left.
I know it was a different team, but 2 years ago, you guys weren't tough enough against Michigan. Are you,
Pat? That's an understatement.
But I mean, are you eager to see the toughness level of this team going up against Michigan on Saturday?
Well, I don't know. Well, I think a lot of it has to do with the want, you know, and you know, we'll see. I mean, obviously they're a team that you know, they run your speed sweep stuff and do stuff to try to get you on the edge and run by you. But at the end of the day, you know, when they get in regular or green personnel and motion around and say, we're coming, we'll see if we can stand up to it. And, And that's one of the things I think challenge, against this type of team. It's interesting when you build your team to win your conference or your side of the conference, and yet, in our case, we're going to see a couple similar teams to that on our schedule. So this will be a good test for us that way.
Back to the right here, Coach.
So when you told the players about your plan, were they happy to see that there's certainty at the position? Do you think that's going to help with your preparation with Michigan more now?
Our preparation's been good. I mean, they always know we have a plan. There's a reason we do whatever we do in practice is so they, experience those situations. So when they come up, they're prepared. So I don't know. I guess that's a good question. I mean,
did they have a reaction when you told them about your plan?
So they know we're going to do what we're supposed to do. We're going to go play hard. That's what it's all about.
Edgar, time for a couple final questions.
You mentioned last week Taven Bryant got off to a slow start in camp. What was he not doing, and what's he kind of started picking up?
No, he's a guy. He just didn't show up as much as he did, during spring, and yet I think after he kind of saw that and the finish piece of it, he really picked it up, and he finished with a good camp.
We keep hearing from other players testimonials of his feats of strength. He sounds like he's a brute in the weight room, etc.
Yeah, he is.
Is there anything that he's done that you were just kind of like taken aback from when it comes to that?
Well, the guy is an incredible athlete, and still learning how to play the position, but I think he's really got a good handle on it. This will be one of those tests where we need him to come up big, especially on the inside against what they do. So, but he is he is something else, no doubt.
A couple final questions, Thomas and Philip.
Michigan released its roster today. It was all NFL guys. You worked Tebow into your depth chart?
No, I think he's too busy playing baseball. So I'm not sure we can get him back right now.
Philip.
Coach, what are signs of progress for Nick Washington at this point? Is he still a guy that you feel like you can count on?
No, there's no doubt. Nick is glue for us back there in the secondary and really on the defense in general. He's a guy the team looks up to. He's been a really, really good influence on those young DBs back there, and even as he kind of was going through some of the injuries, he was constantly there and does a great job not only while on the field, but does a great job in the classroom piece of it as well.
Nick, over here to the right, Coach.
That Friday walk through the stadium's not new, or just because you're in Dallas. Where did you pick that up as far as just showing the guys where they're going to play when you're on the road?
Well, I think what we try to do is if we've not been there, we just try to go take a look at it and let everybody take pictures and do all that kind of stuff. And not only that, but I'm kind of excited to see what it looks like.
Did you get it from another coach, just an idea you had when you got here?
We've done it different everywhere we've been. I think, the biggest thing is the idea that you can visualize kind of what you're going to be doing, where you're going to do it, I think is big.
And then Kadarius Toney, with what he can do and how.
You mean as a starter in Wildcat?
No. Well, if you want to give that to us now, that's fine.
Go ahead. I gave it to you.
Do you kind of have to watch how many reps he gets in a game, or if he's playing receiver, returning, possibly quarterback? You kind of have to watch and see if he's getting tired, or how do you manage that?
Boy, you hope that you don't have to worry about that. I think there's a rotation plan for all the positions. And that comes down to when we meet about playing the players and exactly how we're going to do it. And that's something we do actually on Fridays.
We'll wrap it up with Gene. Joe, you don't have a question? Joe, you good? I thought you had your hand up. You have your hand up? We're good. No. All right, we'll wrap it up with Gene right here.
Okay, Gene.
What's your confidence level on the offensive line going into this game? And do Do you subscribe to the theory that the game is going to be won or lost there?
I think 100%, Gene. I think we were physically dominated the last time we played this team, and I think in the games that we've struggled in, it's because up front we've been whooped, and for us, I think it's important, that those guys understand that, and as I said, I think not letting the previous play affect what you do on the next play. I think, to me, that's probably the big thing. No matter what, you're going to get beat at some point. No one's played the perfect game, but the teams that are really successful, the players that are really successful, have short memories. They learn from it, but then they move ahead to the next play. And I think them understanding that, each play is an individual event, and what you got to do is you got to win more of those individual events than your opponent does, and that usually gives you a pretty good chance to win. Thanks, guys.
Mac, what kind of shoes?
Appreciate it.
He's on announcing starts full red.
What's that now?
Harbaugh just announced he was on announcing one of you did.
What kind of shoes?
But then when people told him you announced it,
Because he's wearing plates.
Is
He
he?
showed up in plates. Are you sure you're not playing? He could be. Thanks, Ken.
I'll let you guys deal with it. How's that?
All right. Nah. Say that for the game day.
Camera's good.